sending out the recording after our presentation today. That way you guys have it on hand. So the presentation is presented by TRENDnet. The title is How Can TRENDnet Find a Solution for You? My name is Vanya Stegner, and I am the Marketing Manager with the Physical Security team here at Ingram Micro. Before we begin, I did want to cover a couple of housekeeping items. The phone lines are currently muted, and they will remain so for the duration of the webinar. If you have any questions during the webinar, please enter them into the Q&A box. It's located in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We do highly encourage your questions. That's what we can help keep this interactive. I'll answer your questions after the presentation. I will announce the raffle winner of the $100 Amex gift card after the presentation. So make sure to hang in there, and then after the Q&A, I'll go ahead and announce the winner. Following the webinar, I will send out an email with today's recorded presentation along with the presenter's contact information. That way, if you had any additional questions, you can always reach out to the presenter. Our presenter today is Justin Ritchie from TRENDnet. So without further ado, please welcome Justin.
I want to talk a little bit about our products and also our solutions. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to type those into the questions pane, and I'll make sure to get to every single one of you. And I'll make sure at the end I also give you my contact information as well as our Ingram sales rep manager in case you guys need anything in the future as well. So for you who aren't familiar with us, we've been in the industry for quite a while now. Actually, I think we're coming up on 25 years now, and I think this has changed. I think we all now have over 350 products. Quite a bit. We're right here in Torrance, California, which is just south of Los Angeles. So about IP cameras, Ethernet networks, outdoor wireless solutions, and also power line. Power line, we've had a lot of really cool advancements. So in addition to talking about products, I also want to talk about the new technology as well. So we're not going to talk about all of these today, of course. There's just too many of them, but there's a few on spotlight, and we do have a ton of indoor and outdoor cameras. And I believe we're coming out with even more, since I last made this slide. So here's all of them. These are our top sellers right now. So these are the ones that we've been moving the most of. They're all really similar. So just to give you guys an idea, I want to just talk about a little bit about these cameras and how they differ from each other. Just from the looks of it, you wouldn't be able to tell. So these are PoE cameras. They're IP cameras, so they're scalable. They can be used, in conjunction with our PoE switches to power source them. It's just such a great solution, especially for installers and also IT people. They just much prefer this over CCTV. So with some of the differences, these are 3 megapixel. These are 1.3 megapixel. So the housing is the same here and here and here and here. There is a difference in the resolution, also a difference in price too. So those of you that don't know, a megapixel is somewhere in the 2048 by 1536 range, which is greater than 1080p if you use it by max settings. 1.3 megapixel is equivalent to about 720p in area. 3 megapixel, you're going to get an amazing image, and you can also digitally zoom in and still have a good picture because the picture is so large to begin with. And then for the 1.3 megapixel cameras, that's going to be your standard for most security installations. The reason is because once you go past 720p, once you have like 20 cameras and you want to say keep video for 2 weeks or 30 days, you're starting into really large storage requirements, and that can be offset by using things like motion detection. That's why most people choose to use 1.3 megapixel cameras. And again, they're all outdoor rated, but because of the price point, people use them indoors a lot too. They're all PoE, and then there's only a slight law on the night vision rating due to the dome form factor. We have a couple others too, and then so these there's too many specs to list, so I just kept it pretty simple. So the biggest thing is that they're varifocal, which means there's a knob on these. For the 343, it's a screw that uses a flathead, and then the 342 you actually open up the casing, and there's a couple of knobs in there. So you really adjust both the zoom and also the focus. So this is good, and it works great for most situations. But when you focus and you have to, watch a specific area, this guarantees that you get a sharp focus in that area. Optical zoom is better than digital zoom too because you're not just blowing up the image, you're optically adjusting the lens. So the other difference between the last two is they support two-way audio and micro SD cards. So a few differences here. I mean by both optical zoom, varifocal, adjusting everything. So here's at the bottom of the camera. So here's a fly head, and you can turn it left to, either increase or lessen the zoom. So here we're zoomed in, and then again, this image isn't blown up. We just manually adjusted the optics. And here's what at night. Again, it's a little grainier because of the IR cut filter, but still a pretty clear picture. And also we have the speed dome cameras, and they're actually larger than they look. So if you saw these in person, they're actually quite large. So these aren't so much for home installations. So it was an extremely large compound. These would mostly be for businesses. These are mostly going to be mounted on buildings. What makes these so different from our other cameras, and again these are in a much higher price point, is the motor. It's heavily motorized, so they can actually pan and tilt and follow moving cars. They can move that quickly. At least at residential, and business speeds that you would expect, to see in a business district like where our building is. 20 times optical, 16 times digital zoom. So for a combined zoom of 320, you can actually zoom all the way down the street. I did that when we had these in R&D, and because it has the WDR image balancing, you can actually move glass and cut through windows because it balances the light. Of course, yeah, these are all PTZ. They're both outdoor rated, and then so this is kind of deceptive because it says 1.3 megapixel, which is like 720p. Because it has such great optical zoom, it's always going to have, a zoomed in image anyway, so it's always going to be a perfect image. And these have everything that that the last two have. A couple of quick things to note is if you end up using all these cameras, you definitely want to note that the mount is not included, sold separately. The reason why we did this is because we have 4 different options. We have the wall mount, the corner mount, the ceiling mount, and the pole mount. So heads up, those are all skewed up separately, and then there's those 4 options. So this is a technology that we use. TRENDnet is, what we call it, but it's also recognized by IEEE as 802.3az power saving. And what it does is that it'll power down ports to save power, or it'll signal to detect how long the cable is. And if it detects that the cable is a shorter cable, it'll use less power. So you can save energy by up to 70% in certain cases, and when you start to add a bunch of these up, you really start to notice those savings. A couple of different types of switches. We have unmanaged and we have managed. But when we get to managed, we have 2 different types. So I want to talk a little bit about that too, since for people who aren't IT people, people who come from the security world, guys who have been doing CCTV for a while, some of this could be new stuff. Unmanaged switch, this is like your plug and play option. It works very much in the same way as the USB hub in the fact that you don't have to install any drivers. There's no management interface. You just basically plug stuff into it and it works. So switch. So web switch is when you're going beyond just wanting port density, when you need more than just additional ports. So web switch can do a number of different things. Advanced management features. It does have an IP address, and that IP address is what you use to log into the management interface. And once you get in there, you can do a ton of stuff. You can do VPN to make certain ports invisible to others. Why do you want to do that? Let's just say you have an accounting server in your office or an e-commerce server. You want to make that invisible to other parts of the network. You can do that with this switch. You can do other stuff as well. Like you can log in and you can tell the switch to treat 2 ports as 1 port. That way you never get you never lose bandwidth when going from switch to switch. You can have certain types of traffic. And you can go on and on with all the features that this thing has. If you want to check them out, you can check those out on our website. But also too is when you get into PoE with smart switches, you get a lot of cool stuff too, because that cross section of products, you can do like remotely power cycle devices. It's really cool because you can just log into the switch and you can just turn the camera on and off without having to physically go, and unplug the camera. And also, too, you can set PoE priorities. So let's say, you didn't really plan to add this many things onto the network. So maybe you're not working with as high of a PoE budget as you would have if you had planned that, in advance. So what you do is you can set PoE priorities so it prioritizes certain devices. So if power's out, it'll cut out the least important device first. So what's a managed switch? So this is a product category we have because we have the unmanaged, we have the WebSmart, and the managed layer 2. So managed 2 is very similar to WebSmart, but there's a couple of different things. To be a larger difference, but taking many of those managed layer 2 features and we added them into WebSmart switches. Things, all the different versions of SNMP, all the different versions of spanning tree protocol, all been added to the WebSmart switches. But there's a couple of things that still make managed layer 2 switches different. One is command line interface. Most people don't use that. Most people just use, our graphical user interface. Someone prefers scripting, where they want a ton of switches. The command line interface can come in handy. And you can either using the serial port, which is unique to this product line, or you count it. So PoE, there's just applications for this, and it's actually our biggest product family now. Not just the power sourcing equipment like the switches, the injectors, the PoE extenders, but all the client devices, PoE cameras, PoE access points, indoor, outdoor. So we're doing everything PoE now. So I want to talk a little bit about that too. So it does conform to the 802.3 AF and 802.3 AT standards. For those of you who are familiar, AF, that just means regular PoE. AT means PoE plus. And those standardized, so when you see our switches and it'll say that standard, any camera or access point that supports that standard will work with our switches, and you never have to worry about that. So PoE, it is cost saving. Some come up if, let's just say you have no power to a certain area and you have to install a new outlet. Maybe you have to subcontract someone, which is an even greater expense, so it's even worse than if you had to do it yourself. So what you actually do is you can just do PoE because you have to get a cable there anyway. It's going to need data somehow. So you have to run a cable. So you might as well get power and data through that same cable, and you can save on installation costs. But now we also offer PoE repeaters. Instead of just having the standard 100 meters, now you can get several hundred meters to get power to that device. So that's another reason too. It just gives you more flexibility as the installer as to, just how you want to arrange things. Because there's a ton of different situations that you get yourself into, and it just helps to have more options. And this management, like I was talking about with being able to remotely power cycle things, that's an advantage of PoE too. It's just a much easier installation process. I've done installations before. I came to work at TRENDnet, and it's just a much easier solution. So we have a couple of different switches here. These are two of our biggest sellers. These are both WebSmart, which we talked about a second ago, and they're also PoE. So it's that cross-section of products. And of course, they can be used for non-PoE stuff as well. Common question I get from people who are pretty new to PoE is they'll ask, can you plug a non-PoE device into a PoE port? And the answer is yes, you can. The reason why is because there's actually a communication that takes place between the two devices. And so one device will actually request power, and then the power will be supplied. So you don't have to ever worry about plugging in a laptop that isn't PoE powered and worry about it shorting out. So there, the feature is exactly the same, interface is exactly the same. It's a difference on total number of ports and also the PoE budget. So this PoE budget you want to be very mindful of when you're creating solutions, because that's what this is all about, right? Just together entire packages for installations. This is important is because if say pick a switch that has a 185 watt power budget and you pick a bunch of cameras that draw 30 watts, then you can have a problem. So you just want to be mindful of this and always make sure you're getting a switch, because we have switches that have various different power budgets at various different price points. So you always just want to make sure that you're getting a switch that has the appropriate power budget. Because it happens all the time for people who are pretty new to PoE. that they'll purchase their incorrect switch and they'll end up having to go back on site with another switch, and it just ends up being, a pretty big ordeal. Another thing to be mindful of too is when you're putting together solutions is the SFP ports. Certain the SFP ports are independent of the Ethernet ports, but in a lot of cases, like these switches, they're actually shared. What that is, if you use the SFP port, which is completely optional, then you lose an Ethernet port, so they're shared. So you have to be mindful of that and always check to see if they're shared or not, because it does vary between switch to switch. Of course, the SFPs, you can use those to add fiber functionality to a switch, which is say if you're going longer distance, or if you have specific building requirements. We also have outdoor access points as well, so this is another different solution that we offer. We have point-to-point ones, and also the 739 I like to use for both point-to-multiple point and also just for doing Wi-Fi. If someone needs Wi-Fi out by a pool area, so this is a pretty flexible device. One quick note, if you're putting together solutions using these, make sure that you purchase the omnidirectional antennas because they are sold separately. The reason why we did this is because there's two different types. Over at the top, you have our standard antenna, and over at the bottom, you have one that has a replaceable surge protection fuse. So the one without the fuse is going to be the standard because the unit does come with a copper grounding wire, which is going to be good enough for most situations. But let's say if you wanted to be extra careful, if you're putting these in a high-risk environment, or if for whatever reason you can't ground the device, you can use the replaceable surge protection fuse to add some level of protection. These, they're rated for distances of up to 4 kilometers, but the thing you have to be mindful of when it comes to that when you're doing solutions is that that's for the slowest speed. So that's when if you're using the data auto fallback rate and you're using 802.11b, for example. And it's going to be significantly smaller and shorter, and you just have to calculate that and be mindful of that. Or just call me and I can help you out. So the 738, so this is a little different. So the 738 is a little bit more powerful. It does have omnidirectional antennas. It's just completely directional. And then also the antenna is internal. So this can go much greater distances, but you can't use it for Wi-Fi at all. It's only for, say, bridging two different locations, and I'll show you some examples of that real quick. Equipment list that I'm going to use for this sample solution. I'm just using some of our access points, our PoE switches, PoE cameras, and also indoor access points as well. So here I like to call multiple point-to-point, where I'm using two independent bridges. So 3.4 kilometers or 2.1 miles. Here's more a realistic expectation of what you can get from end speeds, which is what you would want to do for video, especially if you're using several cameras. I say 85 megabits per second versus the N300 that these products are rated for. So N300 is a theoretical PHY rating, so it's not a rating that you actually get in real life. And also, you have to take into account the actual real life throughput of Ethernet as well. So as an estimate, I would say you get maybe 85 megabits per second. So that's the number that you should be working with when you're putting together solutions and you're trying to figure out, I'm using this many cameras at this bit rate. How many can I fit across on a single bridge? That's why I listed these as these numbers can become important when you're doing projects. Here, I did something a little different. So like I said, these are directional. So one here, it'd be pretty hard to reach both of these since the horizontal beam width is about 30 degrees. So I have two independent bridges, and the reason why I did that is for a couple reasons. One is if I'm sharing, I have one point of failure. So if one building goes down, they basically, they all go down. Reason two is because of speed. If I only had one unit here, then that 85 megabits per second now is shared between those two versus each of them having their own independent bridge. So here's our option. I'm using the 739, which is omnidirectional, but a little less powerful. But I'm saving the cost of using two devices, only using one. I can't quite go as far. I'm only going 1.2 kilometers or 3/4 of a mile, which is, good enough for most situations. Now you can see that it is shared. So I maybe can't push as much data through either of these two buildings as I could if they were independent. And here's an example of the effects of repeating. So I just simply reverse some of the buildings. Now building A is the one on the top right versus being over there on the left. get from building A to building C, what's going to happen is you're going to get the throughput cut in half. And the reason is because when you repeat, you're actually unraveling the OSI stack. So basically, you're disassembling and reassembling the information, which is what causes you to lose half. So when repeating, you always want to be mindful of this, and always be careful not to repeat too many times so you don't lose too much bandwidth. So here's an example of solution. I get this one quite a bit, maybe several times a week. So people will have a small to medium-sized office, nothing too crazy. They just want Wi-Fi throughout the building. So what I'm offering is the roaming wireless network. And again, it's not an enterprise mesh solution, but it's pretty good for smaller to medium-sized businesses. So using half a dozen of our access points, end up using one of our 24-port switches. And I use a larger switch simply because I like to leave room for future expansion. If I had used the 8-port PoE switch, I really would have limited myself. So if the customer wants cameras in the future, you have to replace the whole switch. Here's what we mean by dual band, and this really comes into play when doing these access point solutions as well. There's two frequency bands. There's 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So 2.4 is basically used by everything. Cordless telephones, neighboring wireless networks, Bluetooth, game controls. I believe Xbox controllers use them as well. Microwave ovens do. Microwave ovens actually cause a significant amount of interference. So 5 hertz. There's just so many more channels. Also, there's just so many more non-overlapping as well. So 5 gigahertz, in addition to being a less common frequency, just because like when Comcast or Time Warner or AT&T Verizon, when they give you that free router, or sometimes it's not free, but when they give you that router, it's always a 2.4 gigahertz router. So usually only people who went out and bought their own router are using the 5 gigahertz frequency, which isn't most people. So only are there fewer people using it, but there is also more non-overlapping channels. So even if everyone was using it, you would collide with us as well. So here's one of our access points. Tower radios. I believe these are about 18 dBm, if I remember correctly. But the biggest thing is just more so the functionality and also the hardware specification. So for the business class access points, you can actually support 50 or so users versus the standard 15. Most access points, unless I see how much RAM it has, I assume that it only has 15. But these are 50 plus. So that's one good thing too. Of course, you support VLAN. You can do 8 different SSIDs. And then this one, and also the 735, they have a lot of really cool features as well. Things like station separation and SSID separation. So here's the line. So this is actually, we have the advancements here, so I want to make sure I cover that. And so if you aren't familiar with power line communication, it uses your existing electrical wiring to send data signals. And these weren't very popular, I would say, like 8 years or so ago, because even though we had them, they weren't very good. And I think people who use them then, they kind of have a bad opinion of these units. Actually, they've become pretty stable. I really think every installer should have a couple of these in their truck, especially these new ones. So the way in which the new ones differed, the HomePlug AV2 units versus the standard HomePlug AV units, is now the grounding pin, and they're using multiple out. So what's happening now is you have the option to choose, and of course this is done automatically by the chipset, any 2 of the 3 lines. So it's choosing the best possible path. So now better chance of crossing phases effectively. The older units could cross phases, but what would happen is sometimes the signal degradation would be so great that it really didn't matter that it technically could, because the outcome was that it didn't. Better chance of overcoming that hurdle with these units as well. They also have inherent repeater functionality, and of course they are significantly faster. We're using gigabit Ethernet ports now, and so these things, instead of being AV500, now they're AV1200. So the PHY rating is 1200 megabits per second, which is crazy. Of course, the real life throughput is significantly lower. It's around 550 megabits per second, which I believe is higher than a lot of our competitors, if not all of them, from what I've seen at CES. different ones. We have the 420E and E2K. So the E is the standard unit, and the E2K is the pair. So these are the ones without the pass-through outlet. So if you buy them as a pair, they are pre-encrypted. And starting as a pair and then adding them later on. And of course, you can add them on up to a total of 8. You just simply hit the sync button at the bottom to put them all together. And of course, these have inherent repeater functionality. So you can go between units 300 meters per the electrical wiring in the walls. But now the unit 500 meters away, and there's one 200 meters away, it'll repeat from unit to unit. Also, too, is it's not like repeating with wireless where you're cutting it in half because it's not unraveling the information. So you're not losing half. There might be a slight drop-off, but it definitely isn't half. So that's really cool as well. And here's the other unit. It's the same thing except for it has a pass-through outlet. So for certain applications that could be important, especially since for power line communication, you don't want to plug these things into surge protectors. Power lines are fine, but surge protectors actually strip the information. So sometimes it's really helpful to have that extra power outlet. Heads up, this unit is slightly larger, only because it has to be larger to accommodate for the heat dissipation. And here's to give you an idea of where we were to where we are now. Like 2001, these things were not very good. 14 megabits per second, and then it's not that reliable. Around 2007 is where they started to become a trustworthy and reliable technology. Now, I believe the technology was released in 2014, and now in 2015 we're releasing the units. I believe we just released one of them. The other's going to come out in a few months. In the span of 13 years, we went from 14 megabits per second to 1,200 megabits per second. So we've definitely come a long way. And I believe this is going to be the standard for a long time. I think the next thing that's going to happen is eventually they're going to put wireless AC chips inside of these units to add AC functionality to them. The only reason why I think they haven't done it yet is because AC chips tend to run hot. Haven't really figured out a way to do it without setting your house on fire, but once they do that, I'm sure that'll be the next thing. And we do have a wireless unit. It's not wireless AC, and it's not AV2 just yet. But this is going to be good enough, for most applications. And this is really what most people want to do. Most people want wireless in a certain corner of their house. And the reason this happens is because a lot of times someone will have a larger house or have, in case of sturdier homes, concrete and stuff like that, and not just drywall. So that makes wireless communication harder. And also, wireless travels better horizontally than vertically because the way a lot of these radios are designed to propagate. So what happens is you end up having a corner of your house that has terrible Wi-Fi. So you can purchase this kit or the individual unit if you already have some. The unit goes to the router, and the wireless unit you just put in the dark corner of your house that isn't getting Wi-Fi. Advantages of TRENDnet, we're a versatile networking solution. I show different solutions here today, but we have a ton here. We do have longer warranties than most of our competitors. I mean, we've got a lot of them only have like 1 year for a lot of products. We have 3 years. We have pre-sale support in Torrance, California, which is what I do. We have complimentary technical support. I want to on that too because we have the outsourced tech support in India, but for our installers, we do have a specialized program in which you can talk directly to our third-level technicians here in the U.S. Monday through Friday, normal working hours. So you can skip, talking to people who are trying to help the end users because those guys, I'm there to help people who can't install routers. But for those of you who are, on the site and are having issues, you definitely want to talk to our advanced technicians. And you do that by signing up to the partner program. I'll take it from here.
Buddy, my name's Dave Kraft. I'm a manager for the Ingram Micro relationship. And as you can see, this one slide here, well, first of all, I just want to say before we jump into this slide is, John, great job on the presentation. If I'm in the reseller mix, I'm going, wow, look at all the, there's probably a lot of products there that some resellers may not even be aware that, TRENDnet provides. And that's going off the experience that I've had attend various reseller events that Ingram Micro had throughout 2014. So, how do you keep track of all that stuff? Well, first of all, Ingram Micro does an absolutely excellent job of stocking all these products for us. So, when product's officially released and then officially shipped, Ingram's first upon, getting inventory on hand. So they're ready to take care of the resellers' needs from that side of it. But, support side on the net deal, you can see, I don't know, it's sort of small here, but we can get you, we can get the resellers the PDF version of this. But Pena, who's unable to make the call, is the key support personnel in our headquarters in Torrance, California. He's there from 9 a.m. to 6 Pacific time, which makes him there from noon till 9 p.m. Eastern time. So he's a great bridge. He knows the product well, and he's there to support the Ingram resellers that are teaming up, with the related Ingram sales rep. So, but it gives you a lot of cool advantages, once you get actually a more detailed version of that PDF. But our trend program has a bunch of great features. And again, next week, sellers, you guys might be saying, what was Justin talking about last week, regarding TRENDnet? For 30% demo discounts, one of the many standouts of our program, signed up as an uptrend reseller, as an Ingram reseller, we can actually process a 30% demo discount for you exact same day, right up front with your Ingram sales rep. So it's a great way to get this product, in shop, to test it out, and it's not treated as a true NFR. So the next day, you can turn around and resell it. So we have cool things that we can work with to help get sellers to the next level as they continue to see all these cool solutions that Trend has to help differentiate. Just off the top of my head, what you were talking about with the Powerline product, our outdoor access points rack up super well against our competitors. Even back to the beginning of the presentation, the stuff. I mean, the varifocal is just a huge advantage, and there's 90-second spotlight videos that really show the true detail of it on our website as well. So it's a lot of stuff, and I'm really glad that everybody was able to time to sign in. Thanks.
Okay, and if anyone has any questions, feel free to type this into the questions pane, and I'm hanging out here for a little bit in case you guys have any questions, and I'll try to answer as many as I can.
Great. So just looking in the Q&A box, we currently don't have any questions, but are there any questions that you frequently are asked that you want to cover, just to kind of, let everybody know?
Okay, sure. Let's see. For wireless products, I probably get those the most. Like for outdoor wireless products, one of the biggest things that you need when doing that communication is line of sight. So some people, what they'll try to do is cut it kind of close, which I don't recommend doing. So what I always recommend doing is elevating above any obstruction. What actually happens is it's not just a clear line of sight communication. It actually creates a wireless envelope known as the Fresnel zone, and anything that gets into that zone is going to basically reduce the distance of your communication, which includes any obstruction. Anytime you have an obstruction, you want to make sure that you elevate several meters above that when doing, outdoor point-to-point solutions. So it comes up a ton too.
Awesome.
You got a question?
Yeah. So question from Ted Salmon. Are there any analytics built into the video surveillance system?
A really good question. So the cameras don't actually have any analytics built into them, but we have pro software. The free version included with every TRENDnet camera, but there's a paid version as well for enterprise. So the paid version, it can support cameras. It's unlimited camera licenses versus just 32 TRENDnet cameras. It supports other camera manufacturers. So there are literally thousands of different types of IP cameras that you can use with it, and all kinds of advanced features. And once you had the enterprise version, then you can start adding modules to it, which are all sold separately. So we have analytics modules and PR modules, which we just released. In fact, we're still training up our people on exactly how those work, just because they're so advanced. So you can do a lot of really cool stuff. I've talked to the engineers. You can do things like, they call it dwelling. So if someone hangs out in a certain area for too long, it'll pull another camera towards it. So there's just a lot of really cool things, like people counting, just pull live information on the screen. So there's a lot of really advanced things that these analytics can do. And again, so that's a module that's sold separately when you purchase the enterprise version of the LuxRide software.
We have another question from Jared Rollins. Can your wireless products and switches be cloud managed, or are they managed on premise only?
So they're cloud managed. They are managed on the premises. I mean, you can also forward the ports so they can be managed remotely, but not done through a cloud service per se.
All right. So it looks like we got all the questions in. If you have any other questions, you can go ahead and type it in. If I see it come up here, I can call it out. But if you have any others that you feel weren't answered, or you want to think of later on, I will be sending out the team's contact information. That way you can reach out to them directly as well.
And I just put our contact information on the screen, both for me, for David, for Peter, and also Matt, who's our Ingram Microchannel account specialist. Anything you guys need, feel free to reach out to us.
So I did want to announce the raffle winner for the $100 Amex gift card. The winner is Ted Salmon. So congratulations. I'll be sending you an email after the presentation, and we'll get that over to you. Very cool. So like I said, if we weren't able to answer questions, we will be sending out this contact information that you see up here. And we will be sending out the recorded presentation. That way you guys can reference for future installations. So thank you, everyone, for your time, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.